What's up, Rubits? Hey, let's just get right to this top 50 list of albums. I'll also be doing books and movies and toys on my toy channel, so keep an eye out for that. When I was around 14, I'd been playing drums for a little bit with my two older brothers. And at that time, we were into lots of different music. We started off, of course, with, old metal and stuff and classic rock and even Journey and stuff like that. And then we quickly made our way into punk rock like Minor Threat, Social Distortion, got into metal like Maiden, Slayer, Metallica, then Megadeth, stuff like that. And then I can't remember, I was around 14, 15 years old, and I first heard this album from them, which is Ministry's A Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste. Strange title, but if you know this group, you know that they tend to like titles that are punny. They make a pun. If you don't know what that means, it's basically from the 80s. They had a anti-drug ad that said a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Classic era for anti-drug ads. Really, I learned it by watching you, Dad. The great videos or great commercials. And when I first heard this, I remember being completely blown away by it. But especially as a drummer who enjoyed kind of big rolls, 4/4 time, heavy stuff. I wasn't into the speed metal type thing, and I definitely wasn't into like pop punk type stuff, which tended to come a little later. But this was my perfect jam. Basically, what you have on it is a series of 8 tracks, I believe it is, 9 tracks that are definitely heavy. Most of them are definitely heavy, but all of them have some rhythmic component to it, meaning that they're really driven by either a reoccurring or constantly going rhythm. A really fun hip hop beats on a few of them. There's even the year after this, they put out a live tour VHS video that you can still find on YouTube, which I'll link in the description. And it starts off with the two drummers they had at the same time. They used 2 drummers, one on an acoustic kit, one on an electric kit, playing together and playing just great big open rolls and a few little tricks. Nothing fancy as soon as a drummer you get kind of some experience, you know how to do these things they were doing. But it's the creativity they were using by playing off each other and playing around and on top of or behind this relatively simple music. If there were a lot of kind of riffs and stuff in this album, they're very simple and straightforward, but that makes it very, very, very punchy. There's some songs where it'll be kind of just a kind of a recurring, pounding rhythm thing, and then it switches into a lower register or into some strange thing with some spoken word over it, or movie quotes or movie clips on it. And as a drummer, if you put this on your headphones or when I was a kid, I'd have 2 giant speakers behind my head, and I'd play at ungodly volumes until my father yelled at me. You will have so much fun playing along with this. It's not that it's challenging stuff, and I knew that at the time. It's that it is not challenging stuff. That's why I liked it. While I enjoyed bands like Rush and Neil Peart and players like that, to me, a lot of that felt like adding notes or adding rhythmic parts just to add them. They weren't necessarily creative, but they were more of, here's what I can do over this part, which is fine. But it had some of that, but really everything in this album was almost an accident from everything I've read. Al Jourgensen, the lead singer, pretty much the guy that is Ministry, other than a few recurring players or whatever. He talked about how miserable it was making this album. He was strung out on drugs. They were notorious at the time. Them, along with the Butthole Surfers, I remember hearing stories about their tours and about what would be happening on stage. They were very much a partying group at that time, I believe. And he talked about how this is one of his least favorite albums because of the experience recording it. He's also talked about how only once or twice were 2 of the members of the band in the same room. The rest of it were kind of like they would do their part and give it to them. And then they edited all this together along with tons of movie clips, sound effects, drills, stuff from like Full Metal Jacket, the sergeant yelling, stuff like that, that as a kid, 15, 14, 16 years old, you listen to it on your headphones at night and you're hearing all these little drills and little musical parts and quotes from movies, and either you're recognizing them, or because at the time we didn't have Google, you always wondered, what was that? And maybe eventually you find out. Even today, I'm still looking at parts in this album and be like, oh, that's what that was, and going and finding the original movie it came from. It's a really fun, it was a really fun time in music where digital stuff started coming out, CDs were becoming a thing, so music was much more accessible in that way, but we weren't quite kind of ruined by the internet in some way, spoiled in the riches of the internet, to where a lot of this album was very, very mysterious at the time. I didn't know what the band looked like. On the live video I saw later, they just kind of looked like, strung out cowboys. They would wear the cowboy hats that were kind of hot at the time for like alternative groups and stuff like that. But they were a lot like when Nirvana first came out and you didn't know what the group looked like, because again, we didn't have the internet. So even on pictures of magazines and stuff, you would barely see their face, and that mystery gave it a really cool. It was just really fun to kind of enjoy the mysteriousness of it. It's a very, very heavy album. I saw one review it by saying, I bet these people are a fan of Nine Inch Nails, which is hilarious, of course, because Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor was a roadie for this band and got a lot of his sound from this band, especially if you go listen to Stigmata from the album before this. The album before this was called A Land of Rape and Honey. Stigmata, it sounds literally just like a Nine Inch Nails song. So I wouldn't say that every song is perfect. In fact, even though this is probably one of my top 10 albums of all time, I'd skip a few of them, about 3 or 4 of them. Dream Song, which is just a recorded conversation with Al Jourgensen's then girlfriend talking about dreams. Faith Collapsing, it's fine. Test, I don't really do Test because while it's fine rap, it just literally feels like a test song, like they were just almost trying to fill in with something, whereas the others feel like a bunch of accidental stuff that then they pasted together to come out with this glorious creation. This album was, you can tell, really an accident in the best way possible, but it also left so much open to the imagination with the sound effects, the lyrics, the use of bouncing audio back and forth and all that. It gave you so much for your imagination to go on as a musician or as just a fan of music. But it was also really, really fun to listen to. It has some really, really exciting dance moments, because remember, around this time, before this, Ministry was known as kind of like a gothy dance band, and that's where I got to know some of their songs back when we'd go to dance clubs and dance to like groups like New Order, stuff like that. You would hear this, and then later you'd hear Stigmata, which was their ultimate heavy dance song in a club. When the DJ would put that song on, the crowd would absolutely turn into a frenzied pit of dancing. And I remember being told, if you see somebody fall down, pick them up. That was a lesson I learned. So it's not only is it embedded in my memory, and I kind of appreciate it for that. You know how that things as a kid are cool to you now because you were a kid when you got into them. But as I listen to this now, it still completely holds up. There are a few little audio bits that could probably be improved with modern technology if they were recorded now. But that, like David Lynch's Dune, this is an accident that is never going to be repeated, really, and it's really hard to repeat. In today's kind of digital, everything can be perfect so easy. You can hear a lot of the mistakes on this and a lot of the just weirdnesses, but it also sounds completely intended. It just fell into place perfectly well for some reason, and it's easily, I'd say it's probably like my 3rd or 4th favorite album of all time. It's just so good. So go listen to this if you like really heavy industrial music from a band that really created that sound, and just enjoy it. It's so fun, and if you're a drummer, play along with this. You won't regret it, I promise. So have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
Boop.